with another edition of Disaster Survival Magazine's Weekly Radio.
It's Sunday night. A busy work week is just around the corner. Then suddenly, your lights won't turn on. Your phone stops working. Are you ready for what tomorrow could bring? Come to the Gateway Preparedness Expo. Learn about alternate power, communications, emergency water, long-term food storage, survival kits, bug-out bags, concealed carry, grab-and-go medical kits, suture classes, experts on-site at the Gateway Preparedness Expo, October 24th and 25th, Gateway Center, Collinsville, Illinois.
Hi, everybody. This is Steve from Disaster Survival Network. We've got a special show today. I've got a young man who's a Marine Corps veteran who is being, in my opinion, prosecuted and strong-armed by the city of Huntsville, Alabama. Has to do with property rights, has to do with zoning laws. It has to do with ordinances that aren't clear. This gentleman's name, excuse me, is Tyler Truitt. Tyler, are you on the air?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Yo, you're welcome. Just to the listeners, this is not a unique situation. Things we're going to give Tyler as much time as he needs to explain the situation, but our rights as property owners, our rights as Americans are being stripped away. A decade ago it was slowly. Now the rights, especially of preppers, people that want to live off grid, people that, like myself, quite frankly, who just want to get 5 or 10 acres, set up solar panels, set up, a micro hydro, set up a micro wind, type power. People who want to have rain catchment systems. People who want to grow gardens. People who want to have chickens and animals on their property. More and more, the towns, the counties, in some instances, the states are coming in and taking away our rights. And this is a classic case of this. And if it can happen to, Tyler, a veteran who literally signed a blank check with his life to protect our way of living, it can happen to anyone. And Tyler, thank you very much for your service. I'll give you an example that really just blew my mind, and we'll get on to the interview. In many states now, you can't have a rain catchment system. Since when does the government own the rain? And now they're trying to, with eminent domain, they can come and take your property for use by the government already. So. Okay, as you can see, I'm a little bit upset about the situation, but I want to make sure we give Tyler enough time to get his message out. Okay, Tyler, again, thank you for your service. Tyler lives down in the Huntsville, Alabama area, and the government is trying to tell him he can't own basically a mobile home / modular home on his property, and they're really raising the stink about it to the point where they're trying to get him to relocate. So, Tyler, can you tell us the who, what, why, when, where, and how of your situation?
Well, I think you pretty much summed it up when you said it's about property rights. I think really at the core of this situation is just basic property rights. As a property owner, what do you have the right to do with your property? Can you live there and any type of dwelling that you really see fit, at least within reason, and especially if it's not hurting anyone else in the surrounding area? It seems like they just want to be so specific about telling people exactly what you can and can't do with your property. It's not really yours. It's still theirs. They just let you use it as far as what we say that we want you to do with it, basically. So anyway, I bought the property. Well, it's been almost a year now. It was October of last year, and got a pretty good deal on it. It's in the city limits, but it's on the dead end of a road, and it's in a very secluded area. Most of the surrounding lots around me are all just like trees and wooded area and stuff. So I'm kind of right in the middle of the city, but you can't really see anyone else's house or any other properties from where I am. And we have a little bit over 2 acres. So, and again, you can't actually see my house from the end of the road. So the road kind of dead ends, and then that's kind of where the entrance to my property is. And you come in and kind of turn right, and it opens up into like a big empty field, basically. And that's where I put my house. It was probably about November of last year, like a month or so after I got it. I got me a mobile home or a manufactured home, and I had it moved out here. And I started getting everything ready to move into it. And I tried to get the permitting and stuff from the city, but they wouldn't issue me the permitting. And before, I didn't really think that it would have been a problem, because I had been told before that a manufactured home would be allowed. So the lady that I got the property from had actually gotten a permit from the city to put a modular home out here. So I started asking them, well, what's the difference between a mobile home and a modular home? And basically the only answer I could get from anyone was, it's a sticker. So they wouldn't give me the permit, but I pretty much ignored them, because I figured, well, in a lot of cases it's easier just to go ahead and do what you're going to do and try to deal with the repercussions of that later than try to fight it up front and actually get permission. Because if I'd done that, I still wouldn't have, had a house to live in, because you would never really get them to give you permission that way. So I'm kind of taking, I guess, a different, like a brute force tactic maybe. I don't know. But so anyway, I put the house out here, and of course then they started sending me notices and stuff saying, hey, move your house or else. And I went and I talked to all the people in zoning and stuff, and I kept asking, well, why? Finally I looked and I found there's a city ordinance, and it's in the miscellaneous section. It doesn't apply to a specific zone, which, by the way, our property is zoned as residential 2B, which is primarily for single family dwellings, and that's what we have. So I think our house fits the description of the zoning perfectly. It's a single family dwelling. So there's a little clause in the miscellaneous section of the ordinance which says that no trailers shall be parked within city limits except in designated trailer parks, is what it calls it. So so that leads to the next question. Well, what is a trailer? So I think kind of what happened, they started sending me these notices saying, hey, move your house. And I went and I said, why? And they couldn't give me a reason. They said, well, just because. And so I said, well, no. I said, you know what, just issue me the citation and or whatever you're going to do, if you're going to do it, and I'll just fight you guys in court, because I really can see no reason for you to tell me that I'm not allowed to have my house here. So about a month or so later, they finally came out there, and they issued us a citation and stuff. And when they did, they also called in a guy from the community development department of the city to come out here and condemn our house and tell us that they basically said, hey, you have to leave now or else you'll be arrested. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, your house is condemned for unsafe living conditions. And I said, well, what makes it unsafe? They said, well, you don't have city utilities hooked up, so therefore it's unsafe and you can't be here. But I basically kind of...
They wouldn't issue a permit so you could get that stuff hooked up in the first place.
Right. They wouldn't issue the permit. See, I think basically what happened was they thought, well, we'll tell leave and he'll leave. So they sent me a notice, and I said, nope, not leaving. So, then they came out here, they said, oh, well, we'll issue you a citation or whatever. And I said, well, no, not leaving. I'll, go fight you in court. And they said, well, crap, that didn't work. We'll condemn your house and threaten to arrest you, and that'll get this guy to leave. And that didn't work either. So now they're just kind of like, oh, well, what do we do now?
This is a point I want to jump in. Okay. So basically they're trying to bully you out of it. They're saying, okay, well, you know what, the guy probably doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of financial resources to fight this, okay, to hire a fancy lawyer. Costs you, $200-$300 an hour. So they're like, okay, well, you know what, we can play the waiting game. We can play the waiting game and drag this through court, okay. Now, I read the ordinance, and I am not a lawyer, okay, and I'm not going to play a jailhouse lawyer either. I really dislike that. I had some people look at this in the ordinance, and a few said, oh, no, it clearly states that, you can't have a mobile home, outside of a mobile home park, and others were like, no, it doesn't state that. What they're trying to do is use the fine print. And what you're doing is you're counteracting, saying, okay, what's the definition of a trailer? All right. Now, people listening might be saying, oh, Steve, come on. What does this have to do with prepping? It has everything to do with prepping. It has to do with land ownership. Once a individual or a government from the top to the bottom starts taking away or changing your liberties like they're doing with Tyler, it's just going to keep going. Okay, that's all said. That's off my chest. Now, this is the thing that really scares me and irks me. Tell them about this person that came out that's supposed to be the liaison between the community and the homeowners. Can you tell the listeners what happened?
Well, I assume you're referring to when they came to issue the citation. So when they came out, let's see, it was usually I'm off of work like every other Friday because we work like an alternate work schedule. So it just happened to be on a Friday, which I guess was a good thing, or else my girlfriend would have been home by herself, and it probably would have just freaked her out terribly. But so it was probably about 8 o'clock in the morning. We were still asleep in bed. I think it was early, like late April, early March, or early April. So it was still pretty cold outside. The dogs were asleep in the house, and we were woken up by the dogs barking, wanting to go outside, which is not unusual. Because usually we get up first thing in the morning, let them outside. They go out and do whatever they do. So I open the door to let the dogs out, and immediately they just tear out running around the side of the house, which they don't usually do. And so I knew something was wrong. So I chased after them in my house shoes and my pajamas, basically, still into the yard. And as I'm running out the back door around the side of the house, I noticed that there's two guys just in plain clothes that have walked all the way into the back of our property and are coming around the back of my house. And as I'm coming around the corner, one of them has a gun pulled out, drawn, pointing it at my dogs, and then pointing it at me as I'm coming around the corner. And I stopped and I grabbed the dogs and I yelled at the guy and I was like, hey, what are you guys doing, out here in my yard? Because they weren't wearing uniforms or anything, didn't have a badge, didn't announce themselves as police or anything. And one of the guys was like, well, I'm the, you told me not to use any bad language, but he said some stuff, I said some stuff. He's like, I'm the police. And I asked the guy, I was like, okay, well, where's your uniform if you're the police? Where's your badge? And he was like, well, I don't have to wear a badge because I'm a CRO, which later we came to find out that CRO means Community Relations Officer.
Oh, that's great relations. Pulling a gun on a combat Marine. That's a real smart thing to do there. Community
irony,
relations officer. Crazy.
So the other guy that he had with him, I guess, was from the zoning enforcement or whatever, and they had come out here to issue me this citation, which I had told them previously because I had spoke to the guy's boss. I'd gone to his office, and remember I told you, well, if you're going to give me the citation, go ahead and give it to me because I'll be fighting you guys in court on this. And I had left them all my contact information and everything. I said, well, if you need to get in touch with me, here's my number, So they had everything that they needed, but for some reason they decided to just show up, which outside the entrance for our property, we have a gate now, but at the time we just had a chain stretched across the driveway where vehicles couldn't pull up in there, and we had several signs, saying no trespassing, beware of dog, all do not enter.
So you had clearly marked your property, no trespassing. Okay, good.
Right, it was clearly marked, and so when you run out of your house and just see two guys standing in the yard, with guns pointed at you, and they're not wearing uniforms, I mean, you really don't know what to think. And I probably wouldn't have, under normal conditions, I probably wouldn't have thought the guy was actually a cop, except the fact that I kind of was expecting that they might come, but I just wasn't expecting it would happen exactly like that. And so, but by that time, so my girlfriend had ran out of the house, and he was like pointing the gun at her and stuff too. So anyway, I ended up taking the dogs back inside, and we went back out to talk to these guys, and they pretty much detained us in our yard and wouldn't let us go back inside, which they probably held us out there for about, half an hour, 45 minutes before some other uniformed officers finally showed up and surrounded us like they thought we were hardened criminals or something. And I asked the guy, I was like, well, can I go back inside and get my jacket? And he was like, no, you can't go back inside. I was like, well, why not? It's my house. And he was like, well, you might have weapons in there. I was like, okay, so what if I have weapons? It's my house. I'm not threatening anyone or anything. But they wouldn't let us go inside. We were detained in our own yard. And I said, look, you guys have, they gave us a citation and everything. And I signed it, and I said, look, you guys have done what you came here to do. You gave us a citation. You need to go ahead and leave now. And they're like, no, we're not leaving. We're calling community development to come out here and condemn this house, and you guys are leaving here today. So we waited around, and this other guy showed up, and he was kind of confused, I think, when he got there. And they went off, and they talked to him. And then he walked all the way to the back of our property to our house, and he put this big yellow sticker on it which says, this property is condemned, it shall be unlawful to occupy, and, blah, 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 all this other stuff. So I asked him, I was like, well, condemned for what? And he said, well, because it's unsafe living conditions. I was like, okay, so what makes it unsafe? He's like, well, because it's not hooked up to utilities. So I said, well, I have my solar panels, I've got power, I've got water from my rainwater, because I collect my rainwater, and we use compost to dispose of our waste. I mean, I don't really need city utilities. I have everything I need. What's unsafe about that? And they just like, well, it's, whatever. And so they gave us that citation, and I immediately that day we went down there and we appealed it to the Community Development Board, which it took them over a month to even review our appeal. And once they finally got around to looking at it at their next meeting, they pretty much just said, yeah, denied. We don't really care about whatever it is you're trying to do with your solar panels and stuff. I asked them because they said, well, it has to be hooked up to utilities. And I said, well, why and where does it say that? Because I had a source of power, I had a source of heat, I've got a source of water, a source of waste disposal.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you had your basic.
They keep saying, well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, you you had your necessities covered. And as soon as you're done with your point right here, what the person said back to you, I want to just real quickly cover the three key things. Excuse me, there's a train going by. The key three things that have happened so far that I feel are unlawful. So if you could, tell us what this committee said to you, please.
So anyway, I asked them, I said, so why is that not good enough? And they say, well, those are not approved. It's not an approved source of power, not an approved source of water. I said, well, what makes it approved? And they said, well, approved is whatever we say it is, and we say that it's city utilities. So there you go. So even though they will tell you there's no law, there's no ordinance against living off grid, yet in effect the way that they're enforcing it, there is. Because if you're not hooked up to city utilities, well, that's not approved. So I mean, there you go. You basically can't make your own source of power, water, basic. You can't provide for your own basic needs without them, or they consider it to be unlawful.
Okay, so far, basically, you went down to apply for a permit to get the electricity and water and all that stuff hooked up. They denied that. Okay. Second, in the time you try and do everything the right way. You contact them. They drag things on. Okay. You get this one organization to review your paperwork, but before that, and this is what really concerns me. Before that, you had a person, two people, trespass on your property without a warrant. They did not show any badges. Okay, if the guy says he's police, well, I want to see a badge. Okay, and I want a badge number, and I want the name of his supervisor, and I want, if a person's pointing a gun at me, for goodness sakes, and that's the big thing right there. Well, it's one of the big things. Didn't clearly identify himself and show a badge to prove who he was, and then he pulls a weapon on you. Okay, if you had a concealed carry permit, or you were carrying a pistol or a shotgun for that matter, that could have turned really, really bad, and some people could have died. So to me, it sounds like just Gestapo, and I know I'm going to hear a lot of flack for using that term, but bullying tactics. Okay, and there's people out there right now, I know they're saying, Steve, but the ordinance says no trailers, and you're trying to find a needle in a haystack here as far as what's the definition of a trailer versus a mobile home versus a modular home. Well, that's the way you got to be, people, because that's the way that the dang government's being. That one word here or one word there can change the whole meaning of something. And you better believe that they will point that out to you and use that to their maximum advantage. Is it a trailer or is it a mobile home? They're going to nitpick, and they have all those lawyers that can just keep working and bullying you and using scare tactics. Here's the thing: the guy puts a gosh darn condemned sticker on your home. Where the heck are you supposed to live that night? That's using intimidation and scare tactics, and the person that pulled the gun should be fired. No ifs, ands, or buts. This is why this story is on Disaster Survival Network, because you talk about rain catchment again. You talk about alternative energy. all of these liberties are being stripped away from us, and the homesteaders out there and the preppers out there that own land. I would get copies of your local ordinances, study them in depth. If you have any family friends or members of the family who are lawyers, give them a copy. Be prepared to protect yourself because the government is stripping away our liberties. Okay, I apologize for the long rant there, Tyler, but this is at a really, really high level. It's affecting you individually, but it already is spreading across the country. There's a guy that's going to jail because of a rain catchment system, for goodness sakes. So where are you at now, Tyler, as far as this process goes? Where do you want to go? How can we help you? And what would be your ideal situation as far as an end goal with this crazy political bureaucratic situation?
Mostly right now we're just waiting. So we went to court or went to trial at the municipal level with the city, and of course they found us guilty, which we knew that they would. I mean, even our lawyer told us, how when you have a judge that works for the city and paid by the city, and a city prosecutor that works for the city, and basically their only job is to find you guilty, how is that a fair trial? It's not. So we appealed to the circuit court, and I wanted to put some element of, I guess, uncontrollability on their part in there, because I know how the system is. They always side with themselves, and it really is stacked against you. So I demanded my right to a jury trial. So when we go to circuit court, it is going to be a jury trial, and we're waiting on that right now. So that's coming up at the 1st of November. The docket is scheduled for November 2nd, but the actual trial might be shortly after that. So anyway, around the 1st of November. But my ultimate goal with all of this is what would be ultimate victory for me is to get the ordinance repealed. What could end up happening is that if we win at the jury trial, they might say, well, okay, we lost, you beat us. So now we have to basically issue you a variance saying what you're doing is okay and just leave me alone after that. But that won't change the ordinance, and that won't help other people out that might be in the same situation, because they'll still be going around trying to bully everybody else. So my ultimate goal would be for them actually to have to change or repeal or amend the ordinance in some way that it basically would say, like, well, if you're going to disallow a mobile home in a certain area, it would be the city's obligation to show that it had a negative impact on the surrounding area, because where I'm at is so secluded, how could we possibly be hurting anyone? No one's complaining about it. It's just the city saying, you can't do that just because we say so. I'm not living across the street from $1 million house or something that I'm hurting somebody's property value, I wouldn't think.
Right, and it's a little bit of extra work, perhaps, having to the person that does the data entry for the tax bills. Okay, you're a single unit; it's just one property, versus you getting shuffled off and moving into the trailer park, which you probably even pay higher taxes through there, which would be paid through the owner. And the other question is, geez, maybe the city wants to use that land for something, okay? Because it is, it's zone residential, but it's in a more isolated part of the city. Hey, who knows? Maybe they want it to be a park. All of these things come into factor, and the bottom line for me is really the way they went about it. Okay, if you were a different type of person, there's people that are sue happy. All right, if you were a different type of person, and we're trying to handle this the right way, the legal way, you could take them to court for, say you had irreparable damage from this guy pulling a gun on you. You happen to be a Marine and a veteran, so a combat veteran. So yeah, they'd have a rebuttal against that. But there are people across this country who would be suing that town right now for emotional distress of some form. So I commend you on the way you're going about it, but the way the city's going about it is my biggest issue. You try to take the right steps, and they're just like, no, you know what? We're government. He's a single individual, and we're just going to bully him, and that's going to happen to more and more and more people, especially preparedness people trying to own their own land across the country. Well, let me tell the listeners what we're going to do from this end. Is you'll see below in the write-up the Lieutenant Governor's email and phone number, and the Governor's email and phone number for Alabama. We're also you'll see listed congressmen and senators, and then the actual mayor's office in Huntsville. So please contact them. And we're not trying to harass anyone. We're just trying to show them, we still have rights too here as individuals. And the way they went about this is wrong. They're very lucky they're not getting sued over this. So I got back up on my soapbox. I apologize, Tyler. It's just this stuff really, and I'm a veteran too, man. We both signed blank checks to protect our way of living, and they're taking it away from us. So, Tyler, what can we do to help you other than what I've already mentioned?
Well, I think that's really the biggest thing. Just call the city government and let them know how you feel about this. Call the mayor's office. Call all these people that work at the city and let them know that affordable housing and self-sustainability is not a crime.
Well said.
And if you don't want to call my city government, call your own city government so that they don't try to do this to you in the future.
Exactly. So once this is passed, Tyler, what's the plans with the land and stuff? What would your goal with your how many acres is it, Tyler?
It's
2 acres.
Just right at a little bit over 2.
So okay, so you got a little bit of land there. Are you going to do any animals, or that'll bring up another zoning thing. But
it will. I'm kind of limited as what we can do, but I feel like mostly I've got everything right now that I would need or want. Maybe next year we'll start trying to work on having a garden, at least maybe plant some stuff out here in the yard.
Yep.
Other than that, all my basic needs are met as far as power, water. So, really, my whole goal with all of this when I started, because I was living in California when I was in the Marine Corps. I was out there for about 5 years, and after I got out, I was going to college out there for a little while, and I was thinking, like, well, when I go back home, I'd really like to have somewhere to live that was completely paid for and debt-free, and if I wanted to just go to school and do that, I could just focus on that and not have to worry about having any bills to pay.
Sure.
So that's pretty much what I was trying to accomplish with this. I had a little bit of money saved up. I found the property. I paid for it in cash. I found the house. I bought that in cash, and I was like, well, there you go, I'm done. Put some solar panels out here, and I mean, I always wanted to have solar panels, and I probably would have, at least at first, had them go ahead and hook up the water and the sewage, except, of course, they declined to do that, which I said, oh, okay, well, if they don't want to hook it up, fine with me. I'll just go completely 100% off-grid, and I'll handle that on my own as well, which is what I did. So, I mean, really, though, it feels even better. Like, I just love the freedom that you get from being independent and off-grid, basically, because you're not relying on anyone else to meet your needs.
Exactly.
You're just doing everything yourself.
And really,
I think that it's one of the ultimate forms of freedom is to be self-reliant and self-sustaining, because they don't have anything that they can hold over your head.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's one less form of, or a lot of less forms of control that they have over you. And I have never been like just like you. We raised our hand to protect this country, and so I've never been in any way an anti-government or anti-establishment type of person. It's just when I see these individual rights, property ownership, gun control. I'm up in New York, and the gun control stuff up here is just it's absurd. Laws made up by people that have never gone to a range and learned about gun safety, and just it's absurd. So, I'll say this openly, and I'll say to any politician or anybody else, I think every single politician from mayor on up should have served in the military before they're allowed into office. And I think that would solve a heck of a lot of these problems that we're having with government right now. And most definitely the president, you betcha, he or she should have served. No doubt, but for mayor on up, and the reason why that it'd be so difficult to pass that, because you'd have to amend the Constitution in some way, is because all of the politicians who haven't served would fight. They do it quietly, but when it came time to vote, they'd say no, and they'd vote no. And you get these politicians that are going on their 7th term, 10th term, in Congress and stuff. It's just, but it all starts out right with one person with a piece of property, trying to just do their own thing, be as self-sufficient as possible, and that's the opposite of what they want. They want to know how much electric usage you have per month, how much water you use. They want to know as much about you as possible, and that's not the country that I enlisted to protect, and I'm sure it's not the country you did. So we will push from this end. Is there anything you'd like to say to our listeners? In closing, I know you said, hey, you better look at your laws because it might happen to you, and I agree with that. But just want to give you a few moments to if there's anything else you'd like to say.
Well, I'll just kind of tail on to what you were saying about the politicians and stuff. When those guys take their office, they take an oath that is very similar to the one that we took when we enlisted in the military, an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I think that the biggest threat we face is a domestic threat from our own government. And these politicians, they take that oath, but how much does it really mean to you if you're not saying, well, I'm taking this oath, but I'm willing to sacrifice my own life to actually uphold it. And every veteran has done that already. And to me, I'm still serving that commitment that I made to support and defend the Constitution, because I feel at a very basic constitutional level is where our liberties are being attacked. And I say, I talk about constitutional rights and liberties. Really, the Constitution, I think that's kind of inaccurate, because the Constitution is there to protect your natural, God-given rights. It doesn't give you those rights. You already had those. All it does is put it in writing and say that the government cannot infringe upon those. And when they do, it basically amounts to tyranny. And so we have to be very vigilant in protecting those rights. The government or the military likes to make up all these little catchy titles for their theaters of operation. So when I deployed to Afghanistan, it was called OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom, or Operation Iraqi Freedom. Well, what about Operation Our Freedom here in the United States? That's really what needs to be our primary concern. And they just completely let that go to the wind.
That sounds like a hell of a Facebook page and URL. Definitely. Okay, well, what we're going to do from this end is we will certainly be calling your governor, your lieutenant governor, and congressmen and senators, and also the mayor's office and people involved with the zoning. I would ask the listeners to, first of all, check out Tyler's Facebook page. It's called Stand with Tyler for Liberty. Again, it's in the end URL is facebook.com/Tyler for Liberty, or you can just search Stand with Tyler for Liberty. If you would, go ahead and like his page and leave a comment. And also, please contact the people we have listed below in the write-up of this podcast. It's happening to Tyler right now. Tomorrow it could happen to you. So it's time that we band together, stand up for our rights, and quit getting pushed around by the government just because we're individuals. If we stand together, we can win. This has been Steve from the Disaster Survival Network. We've been talking with Tyler Truitt from Huntsville, Alabama. He's getting a very raw deal from his local government. So let's see if we can help him out. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we will continue to follow up with Tyler and update you on his situation. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. This has been Steve for the Disaster Survival Network. Have a great week and keep prepping.
The government's Department of Homeland Security is buying up loads of ammo. At the same time, they're restricting civilians' rights to own and purchase firearms. Can you put two and two together? Infidel Body Armor can stop every round, including hollow points and .308 sniper rounds, is reasonably priced and fully legal. But for how long? Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com, spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor. Just won't quit. The government's Department of Homeland Security is buying up loads of ammo. At the same time, they're restricting civilians' rights to own and purchase firearms. Can you put two and two together? Infidel Body Armor can stop every round, including hollow points and .308 sniper rounds, is reasonably priced and fully legal. But for how long? Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com, spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor. Just won't quit.